Welcome to Lawyers Who Care, the video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. And on each episode, we will meet a new lawyer and they will share stories of when they went beyond legal counsel for the benefit of their client. My name is Andrew Samalin. I'm principal of Samalin Wealth, a nationally recognized wealth management firm for lawyers, their firms, and their clients. And let's applaud Lawyers Who Care and learn from them. Today, my guest is Daniel Gielchinsky. He is a partner at DGIM Law in Aventura, Florida. And Dan is a trial attorney with over 25 years of experience in commercial litigation and insolvency matters. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Dan, so tell us what brought you to the law.
What brought me to the law? From when I was fairly young, probably high school, I had a sense that I wanted to be a lawyer. It seemed like an interesting thing to me. I had been exposed to lawyers, but my dad did something real smart. He exposed me to different professions. He had me kind of follow around his friends, see what they did, and go with him to work. He was an engineer. And I found the work that the lawyers did to be most interesting. So this is now probably junior, senior year of high school. And summer, I followed around a lawyer and then later his partners to kind of see what they did day to day. And I liked it. I said, I think I could see myself doing this. And just set my heart from that point on to combine a finance degree, an undergrad business finance degree, with a law degree. I thought that would be a very powerful combo. I thought I'd end up on Wall Street doing all sorts of big deals. That's not what happened, but that's where my head was at.
And what brought you to your focus, your practice focus?
It's interesting. So as I mentioned, I thought I'd be a deal lawyer, a finance lawyer. I thought that was super cool. When I was in college, I worked for a company that ended up being bought by BlackRock. It was a financial services company, which melded well with my finance degree and my studies at the time. And I thought, what better? I'll put finance together with law, and I'll be a business lawyer. I'll be a deal transactional lawyer. And when I graduated law school, it must have been 2001. The market had collapsed and there were no jobs available for transactional lawyers. I mean, nothing. But as luck would have it, and I think you make your own luck to some extent, I had been doing a side business. I had been renting houses in the Hamptons as like share houses. So we'd rent a really big house, pool, tennis court, 10 bedrooms and all that, and then rent it out to singles over the weekends and have 30, 40, 50 singles catered. And you can imagine that the houses would suffer some wear and tear from having 30, 40, 50 people drinking and partying all weekend at the houses. The owner of the first house got into a dispute with me and my group after the end of the summer. And we started going back and forth with an exchange of correspondence, legal correspondence. Now, I'm not a lawyer at the time, but I am clerking at a law firm. And in those days, you sent faxes. I never used the law firm's letterhead. I wasn't a lawyer. But to send a fax, you had to send a fax cover page. That's how faxes worked back then. You had to have a fax cover page. And I would use the fax cover page of the law firm where I was clerking. The guy on the other side, the owner, who was a lawyer, thought I was a lawyer. We ended up at his house one weekend to fix some of the issues that had come up, make some repairs on our own. And my partner in the house says to the owner, hey, Dan's looking for an associate position. And the owner of the house says, I thought Dan was a lawyer from the way he's been riding with me. I put up a hell of a fight, backed the guy down and gotten him to settle from what had been a very high demand. I certainly had his respect. He told me about his firm, had me meet with his partners. They made me an offer. And at the outset, at that firm, I was sort of a generalist. I was doing civil litigation, commercial litigation, a little bit of bankruptcy, a little bit of land use and lobbying. And I sort of wound my way towards the things that attracted me the most, which were commercial and business litigation, insolvency and bankruptcy, and some land use and government lobbying.
And so that brings us to, up to speed today. Tell us about a great client story that you might have.
First day as a lawyer. Okay, so I get sworn in on maybe a Tuesday by the lawyers at this first law firm I worked at. And the afternoon, they tell me, We're going to throw you to the wolves. And I didn't know what that meant. I never thought I'd be doing criminal law. I didn't know a thing about criminal law. Remember, up until this point, I was doing a little bit of civil law, a little bit of commercial, a little bankruptcy. I did nothing with criminal law. The partner I'm working for calls me into his office and says, there's a gentleman named Angelo. You're going to represent him tomorrow down in Toms River, Ocean County, New Jersey. Now, I'm all the way up in North Jersey, and I'm going to go all the way down to South Jersey. It's a good 2-hour ride in traffic. No clue how to get to Toms River. Never been to Toms River. And there's been an issue involving some sort of charge. And the partner tells me, I already spoke to the prosecutor. I already worked out the plea. It's the minimum. I'm like, what's the minimum? Look it up in the statute, he tells me. I said, what's the charge? It's alleged that he stuck a shotgun down his ex-wife's mouth several years ago, and he pled guilty to that. He must have been in some sort of drunken rage. And as part of that, he had a no contact order. So he pled guilty, right? He had this charge, and now he's got a no contact order. And it's alleged, again, that he's violated the no contact order by calling her, cursing her, berating her, and screaming at her. And she rightfully called the police and said he's violated the no contact order. And I'm told this deal has been worked out. He's going to plead to the minimum, super easy, in and out. No problem, right? I decided I better call Angelo the night before the hearing just to make sure he knows who I am and what we're going to do. Angelo's drunk. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. He's already drunk. And I tell him, this is who I am, and we're going to meet in court tomorrow. Let's try to meet early. Try to meet around 8:30. Court's at 9. Let's try to meet around 8:30. He's drunk. He is mad. F that bitch. He's got it all. Everything to say. And I'm hoping he doesn't say any of this in court. I said, listen, you're going to put on a suit and tie tomorrow. Come sober. Just do me a favor. An hour of your life. Be sober. Suit and tie. We're going to show up. The deal's already been arranged. You're going to plead to the minimum, and we'll get you out of there. And he reluctantly agrees. The next morning, Angelo is nowhere to be found. 9:05, 9:10. In the meantime, I go and talk to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor says, who are you? And I say, I work for so-and-so. And he told me you've already worked out a plea. And he looks at his notes and says, what plea? Nobody's contacted me about this case. I said, well, I've been a lawyer for a day. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I'm really hoping that you can give my client the minimum. He says, you know what the minimum is? And I said, yeah, I looked at the statute. I've got a copy with me. I know what it is. He says, is your client going to plead? It's called allocute. When you have a criminal matter and you're going to plead, you have to allocute. You have to admit to the essential elements of the crime. Is your client going to allocute? I said, yeah, I'll make sure he does it. And he says, you know how to do it? And I said, yeah, I'm going to ask him these 3 questions. He's going to say yes. He said, yeah, that sounds about right. I finally find Angelo, who's not wearing a suit and is nowhere near sober. He's reeking of booze, and he's got every curse word in under the book to tell me about and how, his ex deserved it. And I told him, look, we need to get you out of here. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. 3 yeses, okay? These are the 3 questions, but you don't even need to listen. The 3 questions are going to be 1, 2, and 3. You're going to say yes, yes, and yes. I'm going to get you out of here, all right? No skin off your back. Nothing's going to happen. Okay, I can go along with that. We get in front of the judge. He decides to call me first. Our case gets called first. And the judge says, all right, Mr. Gielchinsky, go ahead and allocute your client. Question number 1, yes. Question number 2, yes. Question number 3, oh, he's off to the races, running with every curse word under the book and how she had it coming. Oh. And the judge is looking at me, and the prosecutor's got his head down on the table. I'm not getting any help from him. The judge is looking at me. He's getting upset. And they knew this guy. He was a repeat offender, right? So the judge says to Angelo, Mr. So-and-so, have you had anything to drink or any drugs today? And there goes my 3rd yes. So I start pleading with the judge. I said, look, in his rant, he essentially admitted to the 3rd aspect, the 3rd element of the statute of the crime that we needed him to admit to. Would you please accept the allocution? Judge sees I'm a young lawyer. I was probably shaken and pale. And the judge said, I'll accept the plea and the allocution. Thank you for your appearance, counsel. Please get your client out of here. Boy, little do I know that this is not the end of it. I think I'm going home now, right? But no, I have to bring him to probation, or else he's not going to make it there himself. He's drunk. So I bring him over to probation and process the paperwork with him, and he can't find anything, and he doesn't know where his driver's license is. God knows if he had a driver's license at this point. He's got some other ID. I mean, I spent the day with this guy making sure to keep him out of trouble. And I didn't have to do that. But this is my first day as a lawyer, and it struck me, a few things struck me that day. One, I need to empathize with my client. If I cannot show empathy or feel empathy for that client, I shouldn't have that client. Let someone else deal with that client. But if that's my client, I need to understand where they're coming from and empathize with them in order to be able to represent them. And two, you need to go above and beyond. You know, it's not just showing up in court and doing the allocution and I'm out of here, which is what 9 out of 10 lawyers would have done. It's making sure that this guy who can barely stand straight makes his way through probation, gets his paperwork in order, make sure he doesn't get locked up again the next day for not having his paperwork done, get him through probation, get him his documents, get everything signed off so that he leaves court that day with a clean bill of health and has no more issues with this incident. And that's what I did. I spent the whole day there. By the time I got back that night, they were all asking me, where were you the whole day? And I said, well, I took care of it. I learned a lot that day.
I mean, ultimately, the question could be, you know, if you were going to leave our listeners with one takeaway with regard to you and your practice, what would it be? I
think the thing, you know, we recently did a client re-engagement survey. You know, we went out to 300 former clients, some of them were existing clients, and said, how'd we do, basically? You know, we had a few questions, but essentially, how'd we do? And the feedback that came back for me was unanimously 5 stars across the board for years and going back years. And the theme seems to be that I care. People come to me with a problem, and I take it on my shoulders, and I say, look, this has been a weight on your shoulders. Take it off your shoulders, put it on my shoulders. It's my problem now to solve. I'm going to solve this problem. The solution may not be the solution you thought you were coming in with. You thought you were coming in to order the chicken. It turns out you don't need the chicken. You need something else. But I'm going to solve this problem for you and with you. And I often describe that feeling as like being in a dark tunnel, and the client has no clue where the light is at the end of the tunnel. But I know, because I've been through this tunnel many, many, many times. You're going to grab my hand, and we're going to run through this tunnel. You're going to follow my lead. We're going to run through this tunnel to the end of the tunnel, to the light at the end of the tunnel, because I know where it is, and we're going to get this problem solved. I feel that with every single matter that comes into this firm. And I think that the more that lawyers feel that with their clients, the better perceived our profession would be.
For sure. Well, those are great. That's a superb summation for sure. And first, let me just say, I'd like to thank my guest, Dan Gielchinsky of DGIM, Daniel at DGIM Law. Daniel, can you provide our audience with your contact information?
Of course. Email Dan at DGIMlaw.com. Phone number 305-763-8708. And our socials are DGIM Law.
Perfect. This has been the Lawyers Who Care video show podcast that highlights attorneys who go above and beyond for their clients. Daniel is a perfect example of that. If you're an attorney or know one who does, feel free to reach out to us, 914-666-6600, 914-666-6600. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us today and an awesome story.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to share.